So during the wait for Kenobi's release, I found myself desperately wanting the show to be good. And in retrospect, I really should not have gotten my hopes up. So episode 1 came out and it was pretty good. Ewan's acting perfectly communicated the pain and regret that the character was going through. And Leia was exactly what I imagined her 10-year-old self to be. As for the Inquisitors, the head honcho and fifth brother may have looked corny as hell, but overall they still felt like a believable threat. Anyway, I got a good laugh out of Kenobi's exchange with his Jawa friend, and the only real problems I had with the episode were fairly minor. Some of Kenobi's dialogue felt a little inconsistent given that he was insisting on training Luke but telling other Jedi to give up the code and live a normal life. And the physical acting during the scene where Leia gets kidnapped was positively atrocious. The bounty hunters at times overdramatically trip over nothing or else get foiled by a branch. Oh no, what do I do? It's not like I can just duck under this thing! But moving on, things went downhill pretty quickly with episode 2. Once again, Disney proved itself incapable of maintaining continuity by killing off the Grand Inquisitor. And given the dialogue at the beginning of episode 3, no, I don't think this is a fake out. And as an incredibly desperate leap of logic, Leia, after seeing a holographic image showing Obi-Wan is a wanted man, somehow immediately knows that he's the reason she's there. Which just... how? Also, was it just me, or did anyone else hear Obi-Wan's so uncivilized line playing in their head on loop for every time he used a blaster in this episode? Anyway, Leia runs off and almost kills herself by jumping off a roof, and we get to see that Obi-Wan's Force abilities are a little rusty. Huh. So he's abandoned the Jedi ways, and he can't use the Force like he used to. Is anyone else getting Jake Skywalker vibes from this character? So episode 3 rolled in, and it did the one thing that Disney never, ever, ever should have done. And that is a Vader-Kenobi duel. It's one thing for the company to retcon events for its own characters. It's another to retcon events for George Lucas's characters, especially 2 of his most important characters. Plus, wasn't it part of their contract not to mess with the original and prequel films? What happened to upholding your contract, Disney? The dialogue in A New Hope between Vader and Obi-Wan made it abundantly clear that this was their first encounter since Mustafar.
We meet again at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Yet Disney is happy to throw that out the window for this garbage fight, which barely even has the right to be called a fight. The show should have treated Vader like its trump card. Instead of introducing him almost right off the bat in episode 2 and 3 of season 1, they should have saved him for the finale, or better yet, had him show up in a later season. The fact that they brought him in so quickly just for the sake of mindless fan service shows that they had nothing of substance to offer. And as much as I think Rogue One is overrated, that movie handled Vader's character infinitely better. It used the character sparingly and only showed him in action right at the conclusion, where he utterly destroyed everything in his path and came only just short of reaching his target. Imagine if it had been the same in Kenobi, if Vader had chased down the main characters and come just shy of catching them. The tension would have rivaled 2003 General Grievous hunting down Chancellor Palpatine and his Jedi protectors. which is saying a lot. But before I wrap up this video, there's one specific topic I wanted to address. If you've been paying attention, you'll notice that there's one major character who I haven't mentioned at all up to this point, and that's Reva. I felt I couldn't really talk about the character in this instance without talking about the actress, Moses Ingram. I loved Ingram's role in Queen's Gambit, which, by the way, is a great show. And when I saw Reva in the Kenobi trailer, I thought she looked really cool, and I was impatient to see what her role would be in the series. Again, I got my hopes up way too high. Reva was fine in episode 1. Her ruthlessness was definitely intriguing, especially with how it stood in contrast to the methods of her fellow Inquisitors. But in episode 2, it became clear that Fifth Brother and Head Honcho were just being dumbed down to make Reva look better. The Grand Inquisitor was reduced to a petty glory hound who was unceremoniously killed off after having to babysit his underling for 2 episodes because she was acting like a rebellious child. And for some reason, Reva's character is portrayed as almost omniscient. Why would she know Obi-Wan's connection to Leia? And before you say, oh, it's because she can read minds, stop and think about that for a second. The fact of whose minds she would have to read in order to have that information makes that explanation an impossibility. And furthermore, how does she know that Vader is Anakin Skywalker? I'm very curious as to if and how this will be explained in future episodes. But aside from mind reading, Reva's abilities seems to include unnecessary acrobatics and teleportation? Seriously, call me nitpicky if you want, but showboating in the form of pointless stunts is a huge red flag for me. After all, it's one of the staples of the biggest Mary Sue in the franchise. And no, I'm not talking about Rey, I'm talking about Ahsoka. But getting to Ingram herself, a lot of people have been upset by her claim that there have been no people of color in Star Wars up until this point. Now, while I was writing this script, I encountered a very eye-opening video discussing the issue of racism in relation to the Star Wars fandom and how we need to be more critical of how we approach these sensitive topics of discussion. If you're interested in watching it, you can find it linked below. But because of that video, I simply refuse to address Ingram's quote in bad faith. In the 6 films considered by most, if not all, to be definitive Star Wars, diversity is sorely lacking. Characters like Lando Calrissian and Mace Windu are relegated to smaller roles, and the majority of POC characters that fans are pointing to in order to refute Ingram's claim are from within the last 5 years. But at the same time, the diversity we've been getting in those years is also lacking. Finn was turned into a joke. Rose suffered from the same idiocy that seems to plague most of Disney's female leads. Saw Gerrera showed up in Rogue One for a few minutes, only to be killed off relatively quickly, and so on and so forth. Even Kenobi, which Ingram claimed to be the most diverse, only has, what, 2, 3 POC characters? And of those 3 so far, Reva is the only one to have a major role as a villain. The point is, well, yes, pre-Disney Star Wars definitely could have put more toward representation. Post-Disney Star Wars isn't exactly doing great in that department either, but what do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, if you appreciate what it is we do here and are looking for more ways to show your support, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description. And last but not least, share this video to help grow the channel. I'm your alibi, and here's to hoping that the Kenobi series doesn't somehow get worse.